What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the RGR Football Channel. My name's Daniel Harms, film analyst for you. I have a really nice surprise for you. JP Acosta of SB Nation has agreed to join me and talk a little bit about the Jags game that he went to last week. Yes, that very same game where they came back all by all those points and won the game. You can find him on Twitter at Acosta32_JP. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. This is actually the first Chiefs podcast I've ever been on, so this is a good first one. I feel like great. I never thought the Jaguars be facing the Chiefs again in the playoffs
Right.
when you look at this year, but it's amazing to actually be here.
It's incredible. We actually live streamed that game. So my co-host and I, we were trying to find stuff to talk about at halftime, and we were like, well, I don't necessarily think the Jags are going to win the game, but there's always the chance the Chargers Charger. Like that, it's always in the question. It's always in the question. And the Jags played a great half, but I think we can also assume and say that the Chargers did end up charging the game away a little bit at the end there. But like I said, you were at the game. And you told me right before we come on that was actually your first one. You serious?
Yes, that is the first Jaguars game I've ever been to in person. I was always either too young, so my parents would have to take me, or I lived too far away. And this time I was like, okay, it's a playoff game. I'm going to go, even though I think I am a hex. I've said this before.
Yeah.
I really don't watch Jaguars games because every time I watch, they lose. Like the last game I watched on TV was the 40-14 loss to Detroit. So I was like, I don't know if I should do this, but it's a playoff game in Jacksonville. I might as well go. I'm not going to get this chance very often. So first half begins and the interception happens immediately. And I just see Twitter blowing up like, JP, get out your seat. JP, leave now. JP, whatever you're doing, get out of your seat. And I'm like, okay, I know. I said on Twitter before the game, if we go down by more than a touchdown, I'll get up and leave. They go down 10, and then they go down 17, then they go down 20, they go down 27. And I end up like I'm standing in the Bud Light party zone away from my seat because I think that I'm a hex. And then they scored to close out the first half. Like, okay, 27-7. I can deal with that. And then they scored to open the second half. And I was like, oh, we're going to win this game. This is over because that's what the Jaguars do this year. Like no lead is ever safe with this team. And I think that's pretty cool.
And honestly, it was really awesome to watch how other side of the game, Trevor Lawrence was able to mentally manage the game. I said it on the stream. I think if that game goes in a different direction, it's a scar that I don't know you can actually come back from sometimes. Some quarterbacks, I think that Lawrence is a bit more mentally tough than some other quarterbacks, but games like that, when you come out in a half and you throw 4 picks, we're talking about really, I don't really know how to say what I'm trying to say, but things that can really mentally impact you the rest of your career and have lasting effects. So now that he's able to put that behind him, and that second half that he played, probably one of the best halves of football he's ever played in his life. How does that not only impact him going forward in the postseason, but the rest of his career?
This is a defining moment for Trevor Lawrence's early career. This is a monumental, like, I kind of think about it in terms of like, the Pixar movie Inside Out, where they have the little pillars in their brain.
Yeah.
This is a pillar for Trevor Lawrence, this comeback. And it was so crazy because the first half, it wasn't just 4 interceptions. It was 4 consecutive.
Yeah.
It was every drive. And one of the things I noticed, like watching the game, he never looked like he was losing control of that game. He was always composed, always going back to the little Amazon iPad thing and just pointing to things like, okay, I see where I went wrong. I see what's happening here. And you could tell like they were never out of it. He never lost faith in himself, and the team never lost faith in him. And I think that's a huge thing. It's so important, especially coming from last year where you could tell that the confidence was a little lost. The luster was a little lost because that was an environment not conducive to success. Doug Peterson has brought in an environment where people can grow, people can learn from mistakes, and they're never out of games. Like it's the craziest thing because they remain the same regardless of the situation. They're always going to go for it on 4th down. They're always going to go for 2. They're always going to play their game, whether they're down 4 or whether they're down 27.
It's funny you talk about that. When Patrick Mahomes first came into the NFL, his first couple of seasons, it was like, okay, they just need a little bit of a defense and they can kind of get something done. But he was the same way. They never felt out of a football game. And then, the Houston Texans playoff game happens. They go down 24-0 in the first quarter. And I was on a cruise at the time with a bunch of Texans fans, just a ton. They were everywhere. So obviously I'm sitting over here in a hot tub and they're sitting here yapping at me. I'm just like, okay, you got your moment. I understand, but I know this team. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL history when he's down double digits. History. It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter to him. And it does feel like Trevor Lawrence has that type of mentality. Also, Doug Peterson unlocking that, because now that he has an adult in the room who actually knows how to manage the situation. Doug Peterson also, same level-headedness the entire time. He went into half and he was just, all right, okay, we got this. And that's one of those things that you can really take away from that game, is that everybody felt like they were in control. Like you said with Trevor Lawrence, it really felt like everybody was. The confidence that Trevor Lawrence is playing with, I think, does not only stem from his ability, but from Doug Peterson. How has this offense changed from earlier in the season to where they really hit their stride? I would say after the Chiefs game, they really kind of just started to hit this tear. And how was it not just stemmed from the confidence he's playing with, but also what he and Doug Peterson have accomplished?
I think what they're doing, and this kind of ties into everything that they've built in the offseason, they have created an environment where they're using their players to the best of their abilities.
Absolutely.
So you think about the Christian Kirk signing, you think about Evan Ingram, the kind of the Jaguars made fun of some people on TikTok for like, saying it was the worst like offseason.
I saw that video. It was so good.
It was a great video, but you could tell like people didn't really think the Evan Ingram like signing would work out. And now he's like, you have him in situations where instead of like using his speed to run down the field, he's running across the field. It's a lot harder to guard somebody running away from you like horizontally, and you have to guard 53 and a third than running downfield where you can kind of pass them off to other people. I think just being like in the second half of the season, you could tell their offense kind of shifted from being more run-based to more kind of passing-based. It's kind of quick game. We're going to get the ball out, and we're going to let our playmakers make some plays. I think Trevor Lawrence is so good in the intermediate levels of the field where, he can throw those overs, he can throw those deep curls. They throw a lot of the field outs. Like they'll throw like these weak side flood routes where they'll have their X receiver clear out. The slot receiver will run it out. And then there's a backside receiver running like a drive concept with the tight end where he's coming all the way across the field. And Trevor's just nailing the field out. It's just so cool to see. I think he had one against the Titans where he like threw it right over the outstretched hand of a slot.
I remember that throw.
Like, oh yeah, this is what it feels like to have a quarterback. And you can tell he's playing with maximum confidence. And even in the Chargers game, they made adjustments in the second half and the Chargers didn't. So they called everything based on what they were shown in the Chargers in the first half. The Chargers played a lot of cover one, a lot of two-man on early downs, and then late they would switch to cover two. That's how the Asante Samuel, the third interception, happened. They looked like they were going to play cover one, they cover two. And then on the Zay Jones touchdown, they look like they're playing cover six, and they get him into a 3-by-1 formation. And Christian Kirk runs right at Derwin James because he knows that they're going to run this coverage. Derwin James is going to do this. Zay Jones is going to be wide open. When Zay Jones caught that ball, scored a touchdown, I did a Michael Jordan like fist pump right in the concourse. I saw a dude like wearing a Jags jersey. We locked eyes and we're like, oh yeah, this is happening. And we just we ran at each other and just chest bumped. Like I was out there hugging strangers. But it was, you can tell that this offense has self-scouted. They've known what they're good at and known what they're not good at. And against the Chargers, they kind of shifted to more of a side-to-side, outside offense, especially in the second half, where they just had to win on the outside. And then Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, they won.
I loved watching that game because I was talking about how I felt like if you stretch them horizontally, the Chargers, that's their weakest point. If you're just going to drop back and throw into their zone or drop it and try to beat them one-on-one early in the game, you're not going to get the best out of them. But you saw Evan Ingram pulling away from guys. You saw Christian Kirk and everyone. I love that play that they scored the Zay Jones touchdown. And you talk about him driving right at Derwin James. It's an aggressive style defense that wants to get interceptions and stuff. They want to come down on footballs. You can make them think that ball's going there. And I love the adjustment at the line of scrimmage from Trevor Lawrence. That just shows you, that he's like, oh, I got you. I got you. Let's see what you're doing. And I love to see that. And one of the things that I think Trevor Lawrence has really obviously done, but he's taking these weapons, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, who I would say in their bests are specifically Marvin Jones was a really good number 2 for a really long time. And he's not been great this year for Jacksonville. He's been a little up and down, but I think he's a guy that Trevor trusts. And that's one of the big hallmarks of this offense, I think, is that these guys all trust each other. And especially when they've grown so much, Christian Kirk's done a really great job in the slot. Doug Peterson's, I can't speak enough of what Doug Peterson's done scheming an offense around a slot receiver. But I tell you what, he's made everyone like, oh, so maybe he was kind of worth that much money. I mean,
this offense is schemed around a slot receiver and a 6'3" tight end. Like this is not supposed to work. But no. Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence are such force multipliers where everything is maximized because of their ability.
So great. It's so great. So let's go ahead and look a little bit into the game this weekend against, Chiefs versus Jags. They've obviously played before. The Chiefs won. What was it, 31-17? Something like that. That was, I don't know. When I went back and I watched the game, the Jags moved the ball pretty well early. And the Chiefs defense, it looked like they got some opportune 3rd and long. So that's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the Jags into 3rd and long situations. But on the flip side, the Chiefs pretty much did whatever they wanted to on offense outside of a few mishaps, some turnovers. How do you think the Jags defense is going to adjust coming into this game to limit the offense? Because we all know that you can't stop Patrick Mahomes. It's not about stopping him. It's about limiting him and maybe forcing some turnovers. So how are they going to look to do that this time around?
So the Jaguars defense loves to live in base personnel. This is Mike Caldwell comes from Tampa Bay where they love being in base personnel. We saw it last night against the Cowboys. They were always going to be 3-4, 2 middle linebackers. Edge rushers are heavy on the outside. But when they played the Chiefs the first time, they just got into 12 and 13 personnel and shredded them over the middle of the field. I think that's where the weakest points of the Jaguars pass coverage is. I think Foye Olakun, Devin Lloyd are good. I think Foye's had a great year this year, but Devin Lloyd is still a little lost in coverage. Chad Muma's not a pass coverage linebacker. And you could tell that they knew where to attack the field with Travis Kelce, with the tight ends over the middle of the field. And that kind of suits where the Chiefs offense is now. They have a lot of guys who can operate over the middle of the field and be those tough guys over the middle, like Juju Smith-Schuster. So I'm really interested to see if the Jaguars kind of get away from that base personnel. Are they going to take a defensive lineman off the field and say, like, hey, we're not going to let you gash us over the middle in passing plays. You're going to have to take the runs. And for what it's worth, I think the Jaguars are a great team defending the run. They have been great for pretty much all season. And that's due to guys like Devon Hamilton. Corey Peters is 34 and playing amazing football right now. And Travon Walker and Josh Allen, I think Travon Walker's been great as a run defender.
Yes, I agree.
And I think they need to get out of that base personnel and try and limit the explosive passing plays and just say, hey, Devon, Josh Allen, Travon Walker, if they run the ball, it's on you guys.
Yeah, I think that makes probably the most sense. We know, at least on our side here about Andy Reid, is that when the run looks are there, he doesn't always just kind of feed into it. He's very much, I want to do things my way. I've got this alien at quarterback. We'll figure it out. And that has gotten him into trouble. Against the Bengals last year in the postseason, they were running the ball effectively. 7-6 yards on a clip. Like, that's what they were doing. They just didn't get to it. So just for everyone's aware, I'm recording this on Tuesday. Jody Fortson was at practice today for all your Chiefs fans. So that will be the 4th tight end that will be active, I would imagine, this week for the Jags game. That can throw a little wrench into it. Like, Jay was talking about, they want to stay in base. So you get Blake Bell, you get Jody Fortson, you get Noah Gray, who's been really good this year.
Yeah,
really good this year, by the way. It doesn't get talked about enough. Noah Gray just doesn't drop the ball anymore. I think he had a little bit of a problem leaping from Duke to the NFL, and everyone's like, this dude never dropped a pass at Duke. He's like, well, this is the NFL now. It's a little different. And they did try to get him involved a bit. So there is the 3 tight end, double tight end sets that the Chiefs will incorporate. Just, I want to see them use a little bit more Jody Fortson in the wheel action down the field like they did against the Chargers. That's something you can do to attack the Jags defense if you want to get them in base, attack downfield. I think that's something you can do for sure. It's gonna be a little touch and go with the pass rush. I'll touch that right now, but I want to get to a point that I didn't put in our show prep because I just saw it on Twitter. Walker Little against the Chargers was incredible. Not just because I saw it, but I watched him. He shut down Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack, yes, he's older, but Khalil Mack is still Khalil Mack, y'all.
Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa did not have any pressure all game.
No. That's why he was so frustrated.
It was insane because I think when Cam Robinson went down, I was a little worried because, that's starting left tackle. You really don't want him missing any time. But Walker Little's kind of shown why the Jaguars front office drafted him early despite coming off a knee injury. He's played phenomenal in the pass game. He is such a smooth pass protector. And Jawan Taylor's also played really well. Brandon Scherf should have been an all-pro. I'm still going to
I agree.
Should have been an all-pro. I'm hesitant to say the Jaguars offensive line is going to play very well because Chris Jones is amazing, and what Spags will do, and he did this the last time the Jaguars played the Chiefs, is he'll find the weakest point of the Jaguars offensive line, which is left guard and center, and he'll just hammer at it. I think there was a play where they lined him up over Jawan Taylor and he bull rushed him into Trevor Lawrence for a sack. And I'm just like, hey, you really can't do anything about that if you're Jawan Taylor. That is not the guy you expected out there.
I think that's going to be one of the more interesting topics for this game, specifically for the Chiefs, who last year struggled to get sacked. I think they were almost last in the league in sacks, second this year. But Spags has done a phenomenal job scheming up their blitz packages with their secondary members, with their linebackers. You see a ton of secondary members getting sacks. I think, I'm pretty sure that McDuffie's got one. L'Jarius Sneed has more than one. Juan Thornhill, Justin Reed, they've all got sacks. So they're all coming from a ton of different places. And that tells you that Spags is like, oh, I'm tweaking some things. I see what's going on here. I don't have the defensive ends that necessarily win a huge quickly, but guess what they can do? They can take up some blocks. They can get some guys hammer in the inside and rush them off the edge or rush them up the middle, make them wide. I think they've done a really nice job of doing that. So Walker Little has been phenomenal. I don't necessarily think the Chiefs are going to have a ton of success against him unless you maybe see Chris Jones on the edge, which I'm sure you will from time to time because they love to take Spags loves to take Chris Jones, put him out wide, and then bring Karlaftis to the interior where he can take up two guys, find a mismatch. That's really what they want to do. So that matchup between the offensive line and the Chiefs front four, whoever it's going to be, because we all know Dunlap, Frank Clark, everybody plays on this defensive line. That's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be interesting because when the Jaguars played the Chiefs the first time, Trevor Lawrence does a lot at the line of scrimmage.
Yes, he does.
He always has. Ever since he was a rookie, he does a lot with protections. And there were times in the Chiefs game where Spags got him. I think there was a sack where I think L'Jarius Sneed or Nick Bolton came free, and Trevor Lawrence just didn't see it. He thought he had protection wadded up, and they brought somebody different. So that'll be interesting to see kind of the cat and mouse game Spags plays with Trevor Lawrence because he will do a lot of adjustments at the line of scrimmage. He'll get into checks like we saw with the Zay Jones touchdown. He will check into plays. He has the full reign of this offense, which is insane because this is a second-year player, 22. He can make any check that he wants. So it'll be interesting to see if Spags kind of confuses him too.
Yeah, that was one of the more fun things to watch that game is the chess match back and forth. I did a breakdown of the Bengals and the Chiefs game earlier, the third down matchups. Like they went back and forth, adjusting here, adjusting there, both sides. That was a lot of fun to do. I think this game offensively for Doug Peterson, I wonder how much Andy Reid is going to get in Spags' ear. We know that Doug Peterson and Andy Reid go way back. Andy Reid coached him as a quarterback, like all this fun stuff. I don't know. Typically coaches that come from the Andy Reid tree don't do well against Andy Reid? Do you think that that's just because he understands their mental game so much that he just, I don't think the Eagles have ever beaten Andy Reid. I don't think they ever have. And that just shows you, like, he's so good at knowing what's going to happen. So with this head coaching matchup between these two longtime friends, how is the friendship and the understanding, not just from Andy Reid's side, but from Doug Peterson's side, going to really impact this game offensively, especially when it comes second half adjustments?
I think it's a little bit like, how like the saying is like, no, like Bill Belichick assistant has ever beaten Bill Belichick,
Yeah.
because it's the same thing with Andy Reid, because offensively, Andy Reid knows everything about this offense because he created the offense.
Yeah.
This is entirely what Andy Reid has done. And I think especially this year, they've gotten a little bit more into the old Andy Reid stuff instead of the super explosive spread offense we think about when we think about the Chiefs with Mahomes. They've gotten a little more into the West Coast kind of game.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be interesting to see that cat and mouse game between Andy Reid and Doug Peterson, because Doug Peterson's, a lot of his schemes are from Andy Reid's old West Coast stuff, like they had in Philly, like they ran early in Kansas City. So it should be fun seeing that cat and mouse game, being like, hey, I know what you're doing here. I've seen it before. And if Chiefs fans need to know one thing about Doug Peterson, they are going to run the heck out of mesh. It's a lot of mesh, a lot of drive, crossing routes just all the time. I think on the first end of the first half touchdown drive, there were like 4 combinations of mesh. It's just 4 different kinds of mesh all the time. So they got to be ready for that one.
Yeah, Doug Peterson's going to attack these linebackers like a ton. I like Willie Gay. I think Nick Bolton has done a much better job than I expected him to do, but he is not a cover linebacker, y'all. We all know that. He can get picked on, and there's going to be times where Darius Harris comes in the game. You want to know what they're going to do? Not just that. They're going to also have Leo Chenal in base. So I think this is just a little preview of what I think that Doug Peterson's going to do. He's going to bring out a heavy package, okay? That brings Leo Chenal on the field. Guess what? They're going to check out of it. They're going to get these linebackers moving side to side. And that's where you're going to find some chunk plays up the middle, specifically with Evan Ingram and whoever else they want to bring out. It doesn't matter. Dan Arnold can get involved in the action too. That's someone that the Chiefs might have to secretly kind of figure out. You never know. I'd expect Doug Peterson to empty his bag. He's just going to bring it into Arrowhead and just kind of shake it out. He's going to take all of it and do whatever he can. 4th downs, onside kicks. Like, we're talking about the literal bag that he's got.
They onside kicked the opening drive of the first Chiefs game. I was like, are we doing this right now? Like, you're just gonna go out here like first like kick and you're gonna onside it? Like, all right, man, let's do it. But I also think that Chiefs fans need to be aware of Travis Etienne out the backfield as a pass catcher.
Absolutely.
In the second half, they got Etienne involved a lot in the passing game. It was downfield targets. It was a lot of swing passes, a lot of screens. Travis Etienne has had a little bit of a fumbling problem. He fumbled in the first Chiefs game, but when he has the ball in his hands, he goes from 0 to 60 in an instant. So if you don't have guys out there, if you don't have the right numbers out there, if you have like Leo Chenal out there trying to run with Travis Etienne, that's not going to be a very good plan.
God, I don't want to think about that, honestly. I like Leo, but I mean, come on. That is not a matchup we all need. So speaking of the Chiefs defense, I know that you don't just watch Jags film. You watch everything. You do everything. So I'm sure you've gotten around to some of the Chiefs defense, specifically the improvements over the last, 2 months of the season. Every year it seems like Steve Spagnuolo in the first half of the season, he's just like throwing stuff at a wall. He's just sitting in his office. He's just throwing stuff, okay? And he's like, okay, let's see what sticks. And then they figure it out. And this is a much younger group than he's probably, I don't know, maybe ever had. We're talking about tons of rookies: Trent McDuffie, Josh Williams, Jalen Watson, Leo Chenal, George Karlaftis. All these guys are playing significant snaps for the Chiefs, and they've really started to make a turn. So is there anything you've seen over the maybe last month or so that they've really improved on to get them to this point where they're turning a corner and coming into the postseason?
I think it's the young Chiefs DBs kind of growing up. I think Trent McDuffie kind of missed the first part of the season with injury. Joshua Williams was thrown into the fire as a rookie. Now they've kind of grown up. It takes a long time to get adjusted to the NFL. Like,
no joke.
Guys like Sauce Gardner, Tariq Woolen, like being instant impact rookies at corner, that really doesn't happen a lot. That's very far and few in between. We were just lucky to have 2 of those guys in the same year. But it takes a lot to go from, even with Trent McDuffie, going from Washington to the NFL. Although it's a Power 5 conference, it is not the NFL, especially after being injured and you're getting thrown in right in the middle of a playoff hunt. So I think right now they've just grown up. They've learned a little bit about playing the NFL. They've learned about spacing and the speed of the game, and that's really helped them on the back end. Their pass coverage wasn't that great in the middle parts of the season where they kind of had a struggle, but now that they've grown up a little bit, they've gotten a lot better.
I I love that. I agree with it too, because I think Trent McDuffie has been really good. And everyone talks about Sauce and Woolen. They have the pick numbers. McDuffie doesn't have the picks. He's never really going to probably get those picks in the NFL. He doesn't have the length that these guys have, but I think he's every bit as good of a cover corner as they are technically. I had him as a top 12 pick in the last year's draft, Trent McDuffie, and then he fell, and the Chiefs were like, "Hey, we're gonna go do this because we're gonna go get him." And I always flash back to that video of the Bills room after the Chiefs traded up, because they were literally about to draft Trent McDuffie, and then they said, "Oh." Like, you can see everyone shift and change. They're like, well, the Chiefs just went to get him. And that's what I love, because Trent McDuffie is going to be, in my opinion, a really top tier type of corner. He's paired right now with L'Jarius Sneed, who had a rough outing against the Jags last time. Christian Kirk got the better of him multiple times in that game. And ever since then, he's been asking, let me go after the number one receiver. Let me go after the number one receiver. They're letting him travel a little more. So I do think he's still going to travel with Christian Kirk, because he is the best receiver in Jacksonville. So those two guys are a lot of fun. Williams, Watson have their lots of back and forth games. It's pretty much whoever is playing best. Spags is like, you go play. If you're having a rough time, hey, go on. It's just your time. And then just kind of switch off. But they've done a really nice job of adapting, like you said, to the NFL game. Now, this is where I think the game might actually hinge. It's whether or not the Chiefs tackles hold up. Do you think, just, off the top of your head, Walker, Allen, are they going to be able to get to Mahomes in this game? Can they rattle him? Can they get these? Because what I envision happening, Trayvon Walker up against Andrew Wiley. I don't think you ever move him. And then Josh Allen up against Orlando Brown, who can't get back to his spot ever. So say go. Is that just the matchup and you just let him go?
So I actually think they're going to flip it. I think they're going to have Josh Allen on Wiley. Josh Allen normally rushes to the field. He's normally the field side guy. So if they're playing to the right tackle, he's playing over the right tackle. Trayvon Walker will be over the left tackle. I actually think it's going to be interesting, because on passing downs, they're going to bring in Arden Key. And that's when the Jaguars pass rush goes insane. Arden Key being a versatile piece, Trayvon Walker, I think what's helped him out so much is they just let him put his head in the dirt. Like, Trayvon Walker is not a stand-up bendy guy. He is more of a go-through-you guy, which is why I think the Chiefs' pass protection could be a little better, because Orlando Brown struggles with speed, but he's not going to struggle with power rushers. And
not really.
Trayvon Walker right now is a power guy. I think he's shown flashes of speed, but unless he's in a 4-point stance and just taking off, then he's not going to do that consistently. I do worry about Andrew Wiley on Josh Allen, and then
I think everyone does.
I think Arden Key versus the interior pass protection is going to be really fun to watch. It's going to be really fun.
That might be the most intriguing part, because we all the flashy pass rushers against the Chiefs tackles, which, I mean, let's be honest, Andrew Wiley's a backup playing a starting role, and Orlando Brown has not played up to snuff this year, if we're being very honest. He's played better lately, and he has. If he sees power, I think he'll be okay. Arden Key has been a revelation. He has been a revelation, a guy who, flopped around a little while. He gets now in Jacksonville. He's been incredible. He's everywhere in the middle of that
edge to that defense.
It's incredible.
Edge to that defensive line. They play with a lot more intensity. They play with a lot more swagger when he's on the field. You can tell, like, I think there was the video against the Jets where he's coming out with the boom box that he brought like that. Like, that's cool. Like, that's bringing out the team with the boombox. That's cool. But that actually shows up. They play with energy. They play with intensity when Arden Key is on the field. So you're going to see a lot of Arden Key on the inside. They'll move Trayvon Walker on the inside. It's going to be really cool to see how Mike Caldwell kind of both uses them and uses Devin Lloyd. We haven't seen Devin Lloyd a lot as a pass rusher since the early parts of the season. And I think that's mainly because they've had to get out of their base defense, because they really can't defend the pass against base. So it should be fun to see if Devin Lloyd will be used a little more as a pass rusher or maybe as a spy to kind of like not like a traditional spy where you're standing there just waiting.
Yeah.
It's more of an aggressive spy where as soon as Mahomes breaks the pocket, you go.
He's going. Yeah. That makes sense.
That's what Devin Lloyd is. Devin Lloyd right now, he's not exactly like, I'm not drawing the one-to-one comparison to Devin White, but he is the Jaguars Devin White.
Yeah.
Where he is point and shoot. You go. Like, you go forward and Olokun will clean up all the mess behind you. So he could be one of the more important pieces of the Jaguars defense on Saturday.
It's funny you said that because early in the game against the Jags first time around, you saw him play man a couple times in long situations. Mahomes just gets out of the pocket and runs for a first down. That's something that last year against the Bills, he showed everyone, hey, guess what? You want to man us up? I'm going to run. I'm going to run. And so you do have to commit somebody to stopping that, because if you get gashed on him doing that, guess what? He's going to keep doing it. And then when you finally adjust and you drop someone off coverage, guess what? It's a play to Travis Kelce over the middle of the field. That's just kind of how it goes. So yeah, I think that Arden Key against Trey Smith could be really fun, because while Trey Smith is an uber powerful dude, he's had some up and downs with his footwork and his ability to distribute his body weight. And that's been the biggest issue in his pass protection, is he gets heavy, top heavy a lot, and he gets back heavy a lot, and he starts to fall down. And that's one of the knocks I have him come out of Tennessee, but he's gotten so much better since then. So I just want to see that going forward, but that's just a little matchup that I'm going to be fun
for a lot of simulated pressures, a lot of stunts. That is exactly what this Jaguars team is. They run stunts, they run twists. They'll have Travon Walker. I think it was against the Titans where they had a 5-man front, but it was Travon Walker and Foye Olokun on one side, and Olokun was standing up. And they just used Travon Walker to just crush the left guard and just have Olokun wrap around as kind of a contain. And Travon Walker gets the pressure. Rayshawn Jenkins is also coming off a blitz, and that's how they got the scoop and score touchdown. They're going to run a lot of simulated pressures, a lot of stunts, a lot of twists. That's really what Travon Walker's honestly best at right now. You get him as a crash guy. You want him like blowing up stuff in the middle, causing havoc like that, or get him on a free run as a looper. You let Josh Allen do like the traditional pass rush stuff on the other side, but let Travon Walker kind of cause havoc. So it'll be fun to see if Mike Caldwell kind of dials that up or tunes it back, because Patrick Mahomes is really good at diagnosing who's blitzing and who's. And if you blitz and you don't get there, that's a bad problem. That's a bad thing to do against the Chiefs.
Always is. All right, man. Last one for you. Who do you got is going to be some X factors on offensive defense for the Jags in this game?
So offensively, I think it's going to be Zay Jones. I think when the Jaguars struggled a little bit against the Chargers, they struggled with physicality of the Chargers corners. You saw a lot like with the first Asante Samuel interception where he kind of pressed him up. It looked like pass interference, probably should have been pass interference, but you can't bank on pass interference all the time in the playoffs.
Nope.
If they're going to play physical, and I think the Jaguars adjusted to this too in the second half, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones are going to have to make tough catches on the outside. So those two receivers on the outside will have to make tough catches. And then defensively, I love Tyson Campbell, man. Tyson Campbell is so good. I think people are going to start recognizing him more. He got a few All-Pro votes, which I was so excited. I was like, oh, yes, people voted for Tyson Campbell. He is so good at outside corner. I think by DVOA, the Jaguars are a top 15 team against number one receivers, and then they're like bottom 3 against like tight ends, and they're okay against number 2. You can tell who guards the number one receivers. Tyson Campbell has been a revelation in this scheme. I would not be surprised if they just say like, hey, don't throw at 32, because that's what every team has done this season. They avoid throwing at Tyson Campbell.
It wouldn't shock me. This is something where the Chiefs have shown they will go after weaknesses. They will diagnose a weakness and they'll attack it. And when we all know that if you have someone on the outside, MVS, who's just doing whatever he wants to do, running down wind sprints. Just run wind sprints, dude. That's all you got to do. Every once in a while, we'll throw a curl. But I do think that, the Chiefs will probably at least look to not attack him. I don't even think they attacked him very much in the first game. It was more over the middle of the field, and they had a couple of nice wheel route concepts too. Juju Smith-Schuster, where he got in between the zone. That was nice to see. Travis Kelce over the middle of the field. It's going to be, and all of a sudden, Jerick McKinnon has been a revelation for the Chiefs offense.
That's going to be a problem because the Jaguars still cannot defend screens very well, and they're going to pull out a screen on like 3rd and 12 to
See Andy Reid over here just like spamming it
on the screen button because Doug Peterson hammers the screen button to everybody, and it's gonna be like that movie Gemini Man, where you're just looking at two different versions of the same thing. They're gonna run screens to everybody. There's gonna be a lot of West Coast stuff, but it's gonna be so fun just watching these quarterbacks go against these defenses and the cat and mouse game between.
Absolutely,
so fun.
I'm so excited. Again, thank you so much for joining me. Let everyone know what you're working on right now, where they can find your work. Obviously, it's not any other place, I don't think, except for SB Nation and Twitter, but let them know what you're doing on, man.
Yeah, I'm working on a few pieces for the playoffs right now. I got some real fun stuff coming up, NFL draft-wise, Senior Bowl-wise, and then, of course, SB Nation. Find me on Twitter at Acosta32_JP. Do a lot of fun stuff on there, doing some film stuff on the Cowboys-Bucks game today, but it should be really fun.
That's awesome, man. I'm actually finally got to go to the Senior Bowl this year. My first time ever.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited. Like I got it. I got that email and I just literally posted on Twitter, like, let's go. I'm so pumped to finally be there. So we'll get to meet each other. I'm excited to network. Like this is going to be a huge opportunity for both of us here to network with people. And I'm excited. This game is going to be so much fun. I'm actually, I'm at Whiteman Air Force Base and they're having a playoff ticket lottery tomorrow night. I'm debating whether or not I should go and just try to like maybe get myself some playoff tickets. I don't know. It's tempting. It's really, really tempting.
I'm already preparing for contingency plans for my bank account if the Jaguars were to win and go to the AFC Championship. I'm just like, yeah, man, I'm just gonna have to
all right. Let me just take it down, man. Just charge it. We're gonna go.
I'm just gonna put in like my request for leave for like the entire month. Like I'm not gonna be doing anything.
Oh man, thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun. Again, you guys, this kind of stuff, we're going to try to get more of this throughout the off season. Next season, this is what I love to do, talk with people who know what they're talking about. This is what RGR football is all about, learning more about the game, teaching you guys. Don't forget, check me out on Twitter at InHarmsWay19. Make sure you're following this guy. I know I pointed over here, but I mean over here. He's a really fun follow. He's a really fun follow, you guys. Make sure, again, hit that like, hit the bell. Appreciate y'all. Hit sub if you're not new. I mean, you might be a Jags fan watching this, but
you probably should. You should sub.
Probably do it. It's fun. Lots of film breakdowns every week. Make sure you guys, again, next week we'll have more film for you. It's going to be a lot of fun this game. Make sure you guys are tuning in to the live streams that we're going to run, game plan, all that fun stuff for the rest of the week. You guys have a great day. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching this video from the team at RGR Football. Click these videos to see more and subscribe to RGR Football.